All right, welcome back, folks. You're listening to TalkNetwork.com. This is Mike Adams, the co-founder of TalkNetwork.com. We're conducting an interview with Liam Scheff, who is skeptical of the news of Charlie Sheen being HIV positive. The National Enquirer has said Charlie Sheen has been running an AIDS cover-up for 4 years, and it's implying that he has infected many other people, probably hundreds, or at least that's what's being stated. Liam is the author of Official Stories, an outstanding book that I highly recommend. You can find it on Amazon and elsewhere. Liam, we were just talking about the fraudulent science that exists in many sectors of society. Vaccine science is often fraudulent. Global warming science is often manipulated. Science is used by corporations and institutions to fool the American people. But when it comes to AIDS, AIDS has been really drilled into the heads of our society since the 1980s. Most people absolutely believe AIDS exists and that HIV tests are accurate. I'm sure you've been called probably an AIDS denialist, which is a convenient slander term, I suppose. How do you respond to someone who says you're an AIDS denialist, and why are you denying this, and you're going to harm people because you're not willing to admit that AIDS is real and people need help and so on? What's your response to that?
Well, I don't talk to crazy people, and I don't talk to people who are narcissistic sociopaths. So anybody who comes up to you calling you names is clearly not interested in an adult conversation. I know you're not doing that, but I've learned by dealing with the AIDS community that it's full of narcissistic sociopaths. But I will take the meat out of the question, which is this real? And why are you saying something different? So if I can answer it that way.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, respond to that, because when this gets posted as a video, that's going to be the number one response. You're an AIDS denialist. Just like when I did a video making fun of the cry bullies at Mizzou, the response was racist, 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 right. Racist. I mean, these people don't think. They just throw words out there. They mean nothing.
I know. Well, again, narcissistic sociopathy is the number one use of the internet these days. So
it is.
Right. So the response, though, is just to go into the material, because name calling's easy.
Right. It's the realm of the thoughtless idiocy that has become social media.
Right. It's
right. Just name call, whatever.
Right. So let's get beyond that and let's ask the question. AIDS came about, and it was crowned as an actual disease after 1981, 2, after 1983. The gay community really didn't and I have to tell a story now, and people who are very, very sensitive may want to cover their ears, because I have to tell a biologically true story.
No, that's not allowed. You have to be politically correct, Liam.
I do. Well, the official story, and this is in Official Stories, of course, but the official story about AIDS is that there was a monkey, and somebody touched it, and
in an inappropriate way,
and came. They used to put this that there was a flight attendant, and he went to the Dominican Republic or something, and then people from Africa went to the Dominican Republic. So it was blacks and gays. This is the official story, by the way, not some or is it a racist construct? I guess it is. The official story.
It's an official racist story. That's
the official story.
That's what it is.
Construct. So it's insane, and nobody talks about it anymore. The
official story of 9/11 is a conspiracy.
It absolutely is, and that's also an official story. It's but you always want to let people off the hook for their own behavior. So what happened in the 70s was a direct result of what happened in the 60s. And what happened in about 1960 was the birth control came onto the market, the pill. And so the public sexual behavior of women, not really so much the private sexual behavior of people, because people are sexual. This is something Americans have a hard time with. We don't think people are sexual, and yet we think about sex all the time. We're inundated with it on the television. we have Mickey Mouse girls, Britney and all the others posing, and we're waiting till they pose.
Lindsay Lohan,
to pose in Playboy. We're very insane as a culture as it relates to sex, because we're naturally a gregarious, affectionate, and rather sexual species. But because we repress it, we deny that we are, and then it comes out in these tortured ways. So back to the 60s. I just want to burn through this story.
Yeah, go for it.
Back to the 60s. In the 60s, the women came out, and when those girls in New York were screaming for the Beatles, they were also screaming that loudly. And remember the look on the Beatles, those four guys' faces, like, what is going on here? Girls don't behave like this. But they were also screaming like, we can have sex now. We're not just going to get pregnant. And so by 1967, the summer of love, it was all over the place that everybody was on the pill and you could have sex and it was free love, but it wasn't really free. It was pharmaceutical free love based on the birth control pill. By 1968 and 9, after Altamont and the things went sour, by 1971, 72, 73, everybody had the clap. A lot of herpes was going around the heterosexual population like wildfire, gonorrhea, chlamydia, et cetera, et cetera. The gay community didn't really get in on this great 60s action until 1969 during this thing called the Stonewall riots or rebellion, when the cops were again beating up gay guys, quietly trying to go about their business of living their lives. And there was a protest, and they said, look, you straight kids can do it, we can do it too. The gay community started to form in and around these ghettos, essentially, in New York and Los Angeles, San Francisco, Berlin, and Paris, London. To be gay in America has always been to be punished, has always been to be hated. They had to run away from the rest of the country and go to these very few places. They were just young men. Men are run on testosterone, young men run on testosterone, and without women who can get pregnant to sort of slow them down, they just had a lot of sex. They had many, many STDs. This is all recorded in the standard literature, social literature, movies. You can watch a movie called Gay Sex in the 70s, which is as pro-gay as it gets, to see how many partners, how many drugs, how many STDs people had at a time. You can watch House of Numbers to get the same story, which tells a more critical view. They took fistfuls of antibiotics, black market antibiotics.
Really?
They'd go into the baths where they knew they were going to have sex all weekend. This isn't gay men. This is fast lane lifestyle, young men in the cities. It's a very specific subset.
So you're not talking about like monogamous gay partners who they just happen to be gay, but they're sort of conservative in their lifestyles, right? Who are partnering up and living together as a couple. You're talking about wild, crazy sex flings. I'm
talking about 15 to 40 partners in a week, sometimes 5 partners in a night. I'm talking about the number of STDs in a single. I'm not even talking about monogamy. I'm not even talking about polyamorous gay or straight couples who know their partners and take time. I'm talking about sex as almost an industrial level sport where you go into these clubs and people are having sex in the most outrageous variety of ways, and they're handing out the tetracycline because they know that you're going to need one kind of antibiotic or another by the end of the weekend. So you have all of these bowel infections, you have all of these these gut bombs going off. These antibiotics destroy the gut and destroy the liver. And we all now know, science now knows, that the immune system is centered in the gut.
That's right. Okay,
so they get sick. Now they're putting lubricants to facilitate anal sex. Those lubricants contained benzene.
Oh, wow.
Benzene.
So you're absorbing a chemical solvent, too.
An incredibly toxic known carcinogen, a deadly carcinogen, benzene, through the mucosal layer of the bowel. The most absorbent stuff in your body just goes into your blood. So what do they end up with? Blood cancers and fungal infections, exactly what you'd expect. At the same time, they're huffing poppers, butyl and amyl nitrite, and of course they're getting cancers of the vascular system in the lungs, etc. They get all of the diseases that the pharmaceutical, petrochemical inhalants, absorbents, and pills that they're taking would predict.
Wow. Well, it's long been theorized by many people that AIDS drugs like AZT, and I know there are many others, actually cause the symptoms that are then diagnosed as side effects of HIV infections. It's almost like someone gets diagnosed with being HIV positive, they're put on the drugs, and then the drugs fulfill the symptoms that are tied to the description of being HIV positive.
If you go to the fine print on all of and by the way, if you want to verify what I'm saying, feel free. I mean, to the layperson in the audience, this is not just a story I'm telling. You're free to go look at the package inserts for the tests and see if they say things like, this is not... At present, there is no recognized standard for determining the presence of HIV antibodies in human blood. It says on an HIV test, at present, there is no recognized standard for determining the presence or absence of HIV antibodies in human blood. In other words, this isn't an HIV test. So then they give you two of them in a row, two of that same test. And they say, well, you better keep coming back for testing because they won't just tell you that you're black or gay. They'll say, you fit some of the risk criteria.
So the symptoms that many people show, including Charlie Sheen, he appears, his health visually looks like it's gone to hell.
Right.
And are you saying, obviously there are a lot of rumors that he uses a lot of different drugs.
Drug addict.
That's the rumor, yeah. So is this perhaps from drugs? Is it perhaps from all the sex partners where he now has this viral load combined with drug abuse, and this is what's causing his apparent reduction in health? Well,
you mentioned AZT before. I don't know what I'd be speculating to talk about Charlie Sheen. He looks and acts like somebody who's using a lot of intoxicants and drugs and alcohol. Remember, before the invention of the idea that you would get a sex disease, but it wouldn't show up on your genitals, and you wouldn't know it for 20 years. Before that, being an alcoholic was enough to kill you by 50. Being a heroin addict was enough to kill you by 21, 27. It was now, after the AIDS era, heroin's good for you, but the needle is the problem.
What do you mean?
Well, you have to have a clean needle. That's what we have to get to heroin addicts, because there's nothing wrong with heroin itself. Heroin couldn't possibly hurt you. But
that's the narrative.
Yeah, that's the narrative. But before,
that's crazy.
It's crazy. So Charlie Sheen looks like and acts like he's been on intoxicants and liver-damaging substances for the last 20 years of his life, and that's how he looks. If he's coming out as positive now, then he's probably on the drugs, and those will kill him. If you want to know about AZT was and I don't know if we're going to be up against the clock.
We are, yeah. We're running up against the clock here. Let's hold that story for the next segment. Folks, you're listening to TalkNetwork.com, an interview with Liam Scheff. He's the author of Official Stories, right?
Official Stories exist to protect officials. Yes.
Okay, that's the book, Official Stories. My name's Mike Adams. We're having, we're having an interesting interview here about Charlie Sheen. We'll be right back after this break.